How do I challenge my wife to grow without making her feel like a project or becoming overly critical? And when she slips into old habits, how do I bring it up in a way that invites the conversation rather than triggering defense? Like in all those questions, these are men or people in relationship that want to connect, that want to love, yet they're creating disconnection. None of us got married and intended to create disconnection, and they're just getting through life, doing life next to each other, but not deeply connected. Are you willing to see your partner or your spouse as your spouse, not as your project? Are you willing to release control of changing them? Today, we're going to dive into healthy communication and disagreements in your relationship and how to move through them and be the most effective you can be. If you're in a place where you and your wife do not have healthy communication and you're constantly at each other and it just feels like you can't get anywhere, then this video is going to be the video for you. If you are not subscribed, subscribe. 79% of people watching this video are not subscribed. So healthy communication. We have a community of men that I get to work with at Rise Up Kings, and they pulled questions in and asked, how do you communicate hard truths to your wife in love without sounding harsh and emotionally detached? And how can a man express disagreement or defend his position without being perceived as dismissive or controlling? How do I challenge my wife to grow without making her feel like a project or becoming overly critical? And when she slips into old habits, how do I bring it up in a way that invites the conversation rather than triggering defense? And I'm going to handle each one of those today in communication, because it sounds like in all those questions, these are men or people in relationship that want to connect, that want to love, yet they're creating disconnection. None of us got married and intended to create disconnection, yet that's where so many of the marriages that we see at Rise Up Kings and Rise Up Queens are. They're in massive disconnection and they're just getting through life, doing life next to each other, but not deeply connected. And so how do you communicate hard truths to your wife or to your husband in love without sounding harsh or emotionally detached? When I think about that question, one, I honor that you want to have hard conversations and talk about really, really hard things. And you might have a style of communicating based on your personality type. Most men that we work with are business owners, and they are high D personalities, driver type personalities. So they're bullet points, they are straight to the point. And what I found is most women, most of the time, have more words. So you might be married to a high D driver type woman, but a lot of women have more words. And what I want to point out here is when you're going to have a hard conversation, whether you're a husband or a wife, both sides have insecurities in the relationship. And so I would imagine that neither one of you want to be hard. You don't want to be communicated to in a harsh way. And so if you want to communicate a hard truth, the first thing that you would need to do is see it from their perspective. Get down into the pit with them. Brene Brown has this beautiful video on sympathy versus empathy. And it's this drawing of this guy that's on top of a hill looking down into someone in the pit. And sympathy would say, man, that's a deep pit down there. Wow, must suck to be you. And then empathy shows them this guy crawling down a ladder and getting into the pit with them, saying, man, I know what this feels like. This isn't great down here. This is not fun. And so are you willing to get with your spouse, if you want to communicate something hard with them, and not come at them to attack them or to change them or to get them to move in some way, but to just be with them? What's your intention in the hard communication? See, our intention in communication very much so matters. And what I found in working with thousands of couples is that our intention is often to get them to change so that the other person feels comfortable. So I used to be with Skylar and I would want him to change because him having emotions, actually he didn't have that many emotions, but him having things going on or having a hard time affected me. And I wanted to stay comfortable. So I wanted to change him so I didn't have to deal with what was going on. And so what's your intention in the hard truth, in the hard communication? And are you willing to sit with them in it, knowing that you are not perfect either? So emotionally detached would happen if you were going to do sympathy. Like, whoa, that's a deep pit down there. And you stay emotionally detached if you don't connect with areas of your life or times in your life where you've struggled, even if it's in a different way. See, you might not be struggling the same way or having to have this hard truth conversation in the exact same way, but you can connect emotionally when someone is self-sabotaging or when someone is going down a path that's not going to lead them in a great place. I can imagine that there's been a time in your life. And so if you are willing to connect with that time in your life, you won't sound harsh, because the things that will come out of your mouth will sound like, man, I could only imagine that this is what you are feeling right now. I love you. I care about you. I see you. How can I be with you? So the words that would come out of your mouth would more be to be with this person versus to change or control this person. So the second question they asked me was, how can a man express disagreement or defend his position without being perceived as dismissive or controlling? And the first word that stands out to me in this question is defend. Do you need to defend your position? Is it one of those I'm going to die on this hill moments? Because what I found is you can be right or you can be in relationship. And so many people are so focused on being right and defending their position that they lose the relationship. So is this one of those things that you need to defend your position? And you're welcome to defend your position if you want to, but are you willing to see the other sides of the argument? Are you willing to see it from someone else's perspective? And so you would be perceived as dismissive or controlling if you're unwilling to see it from other angles or other sides or see it from their perspective. When we do our live events, everything we do is experiential. And in one of the events, I have someone sit in one chair and they're both facing their backs together and they're facing out. And I have one person facing a wall that's one color. We call it white wall, black wall. And so one person is facing a white wall and one person is facing a black wall. And then I say, hey, Jessica, what color is your wall? White. Skylar, what color is your wall? Black. And then we go back and forth like that over and over and over again. White, black, white, black. And I'm like, does this sound familiar? And they're like, yes, because they are both defending their position. And I say, okay, well, you have control over getting out of this. You are in control of how long you stay here. So what are you going to choose to do that would be different in order to solve this? So if they're unwilling to move their chairs and look at the other person's side, they would be perceived in that argument as dismissive and controlling. But eventually someone says, hey, tell me why your wall is white. Like, help me understand. And the way we model that in the room is by them actually turning their chair around to see from their perspective. And so are you willing to drop, not acknowledge that the other person is right? I'm not asking you to do this, but hold both ideas in your mind at the same time. This is what I believe, but why are they believing this? Are you willing to check in at least? The third question around communication and disagreements was, how do I challenge my wife to grow without making her feel like a project or becoming overly critical? And my first response to that is, did she ask you to challenge her? Did he ask you to challenge him? See, what I find is that so many couples move into the role, not of spouse, helpmate coming alongside them, but they move into the role of playing God or Holy Spirit to their partner in their relationship. And they unknowingly take on this role that it is their job to change them. So if they say they're committed to a goal of not eating sugar, then it's their job to say, hey, you're eating sugar, and monitor all the sugar that's going in. And what that ends up feeling like is you are someone's project and you are overly critical, and it is disastrous in marriages. And so one, did she ask you to challenge her? And then two, or did he ask you to challenge him? And if they did, that's what's best for your relationship? See, we found that I am not the best accountability partner for Skylar. It produces this control in me. It changes the dynamic in our relationship of leader and who's leading, and it makes me feel critical of him. And then I'm looking for all the ways he's not doing great things. I don't want to be in that mindset. I want to look for all the things that he is doing right, that are going well. And so we have made the agreement that I am not going to be the person that's challenging him. He needs to put people around him, whether it's friends or coaches or mentors, that are going to challenge him and allow him to grow. And then I have an open hand policy that I am not his Holy Spirit. I'm going to let God change him. And sometimes I have this thought that, well, he should be changing faster and he should be doing this and he should be doing that. Says who? Because based on results, if he's not, maybe God has another plan for him. Or maybe he's a slow learner. I don't know. Maybe he has a different path than me. See, I thought my spouse was supposed to be on my path. And when I was growing in one area, they were supposed to be growing in that area. And that is so far from the truth and will create massive disconnection in your marriage if you continue to operate in that way. So last question. So when they slip into old habits, how do you bring it up in a way that invites the conversation rather than triggering defense? So again, it's just like the first question. Are you willing to go past the behavior and look to the person? So if this person is slipping into old habits, what might be going on for them? Are they stressed? Are they frustrated? What could be going on for them when you've gone into an old habit? What might have been going on for you? And so rather than coming in to correct the behavior, can you come in to just be with the person? So your come from is going to matter. If you're looking to correct and change, then it might trigger defense versus, hey, I noticed you've been eating a lot of sugar and you said you didn't want to eat sugar. Is there any way I can be with you differently? And so you guys have different communication styles more than likely. For me, I need Skylar to be tender and soft and slow and just use startups like, hey, are you open to feedback? Where in his everyday life, he is a very direct, to the point person and can maybe in my eyes be seen as harsh sometimes. But if we're going to have a conversation where he's challenging me, I need him to start slow. I need him to be soft. So his tone carries the intention. So your tone carries your intention. Hey, what are you doing eating sugar? You said you weren't going to do that. That intention is correction and stop. Hey, you said you weren't going to eat sugar. Are you doing okay? So that intention is to be with. And when you lean in with humility and are willing to see ways that you show up in that way, it will go way further. And so lastly, I want to close with, are you willing to see your partner or your spouse as your spouse, not as your project? Are you willing to release control of changing them? And that's not maybe your job. You can support them, come alongside them, but are you treating them like a project, like they're your project to change, and then getting frustrated when they don't do what you want? That's not good for any of us. So if you want more on communication, intimacy, connection, and marriage, definitely hit the subscribe button. And I'd love to hear what stood out most. I'll see you soon.